English World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me is David Morassutti. David, hello.
Dang, Frank, and hi, Eduardo. I don't know if he doesn't realize he's still in here, but I want to make sure he got out. We are back.
Are we live?
We are live.
We're not Memrex? I don't know if
No,
people remember that term. All right, listen. It's the Canadian Football League second last weekend. We resolved who's going to be in the playoffs, and we know who's going to be in the playoffs, and we know that Hamilton's going to play Montreal, and it's going to be an interesting playoff game, let me tell you. But let's talk about what happened and how we got here. Ottawa lost to Hamilton. If Hamilton had lost and Ottawa had won, Saskatchewan, Hamilton, and Ottawa would have all still had a chance to be in the playoffs. But nope, Saskatchewan gone because they lost earlier in the weekend. And we know also that the Toronto Argonauts are definitely going to be the home team. And so the East is set soup to nuts. The Western Division's a little more clouded, just a little bit.
well, no, the West is finalized too because Calgary will be going to BC. BC locked up second place, and then Winnipeg's got first. But it's funny because some people were like, I don't know if the Argos have it all booked. I don't know if they're going to be able to. There's still an opportunity. I said, there's always an opportunity. Nothing is sealed until it's until the CFL confirms. Yep, we're going to Toronto on the East Final. Nothing's ever certain, but personally, I didn't see a scenario where the Argos were not going to finish first after what I was seeing the last few weeks. They hadn't been playing great, but the one thing they've been doing is they've been finding a way to consistently put together wins, something that, frankly, Montreal and Hamilton hadn't really been doing. Hamilton more so now. If I'm Montreal, eh, maybe a little more worried, but I didn't see a scenario where the Argos were not going to pull out because especially considering they just needed to win one game to clinch first, and Montreal would need to sweep. It's hard to beat a team in the CFL. It's even harder to do it 2 weeks in a row. So I felt like the Argos, it was everything was kind of on their side. There's always that chance, but I felt like this was their spot to lose in the division.
The clouded version of the Western Division was if Nathan York comes out next week and has a game before the playoffs. That's the clouded part that I had because that's a major factor. If he can get to if he can get the beginning season form, it's a whole different ballgame with him in there under center. I mean, as much as we all like Adams, he's not a Rourke.
No, he's not. No, he's definitely not. And I know that people have. I actually was on the Hamilton radio network, not too long ago, and we were talking about the possibility of a Nathan Rourke returning, and I said that you got to do what's right by the player. You got to make sure that he's not putting himself in a situation he shouldn't be put in. And then Nolan McMillan, who used to play offensive line for the Ottawa Red Blacks, he was joining the show, and he's like, I've had this injury or a version of this injury. I'm not as convinced because it's a tough injury to come back from because your foot, you're not going to get all that strength back in your foot. And if we know a quarterback, you need almost every part of your body to be, in sync and coexisting together. Because if one part of your body is not at 100% or not at the level it needs to be, it impacts your game and it makes you compensate for it. So I'm hoping, but it's gonna be tough.
When we talk about quarterbacks, there isn't much conversation about it on a regular basis, but it is an important factor: footwork. And what you're alluding to, I agree with 100%. If one foot isn't acting in symbiosis with the other foot, and you're trying one foot's trying to make up for the other foot. There's a rhythm that a quarterback has that a human being has. That when their body's doing what it's supposed to do, it's a lot easier to do through repetition what you need to do because of the repetition. An injury that requires you to recover, or you're not fully recovered on one side, or you haven't brought your body, every part of your body to the same level, it affects everything else because you just don't have the same rhythm. And it's all about habit, right? It's all about practice. It's all about repetition. And he's going to have to figure out if his foot isn't 100% and he can't do with it what he was doing before he was injured, he's going to be handicapped. But here's the thing that I'm going to say: there's something about this kid that tells me that he'll overcome that handicap if he comes in.
What is that?
No, he can
Like,
overcome. I think he can
like you
overcome
just
it.
think, but like like look, Nathan
Not
Rourke's
the
tons of
injury,
talent.
but the recovery.
But here's the thing, like I don't know if look, he's done incredible things in the CFL, and it does take a specific mentality to come back from an injury like this. I don't know. Maybe it's because I haven't seen Nathan Rourke enough. I haven't talked to him enough to really know if he can do it because he's not exactly. This is the other thing about Nathan Rourke. Not exactly the biggest player. Not exactly like the most. No,
He's not tiny though.
not tiny, but he's also not like who's a good example? Like a McLeod. Like McLeod Beth Thompson is a big
A
quarterback.
tank. He's a tank.
Yeah, he's taken some shots, and like he's able to get up because he's capable of doing it. But yeah, no, I'm not putting anything past Nathan Rourke at this point. I'll say that.
So he's the only clouded issue that's in the for the playoffs in the West. The East, we agreed already, was predictable, but I think it's even predictable um, in the sense that the better Hamilton quarterback is going to start because the one that's supposed to be the better quarterback got hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
Matthew Schultz is a better quarterback than Evans right now.
He is. You know what? I wouldn't even. I think even a better word is he's a more stable. You know what you're getting from Matthew Schultz. These last, let's say, 4 weeks.
He's been good whenever he's been brought in.
Yeah,
He's the guy that beat Toronto.
yeah. My thing about with Dane Evans is we've seen some really good play from him, and then we've seen some very not good plays. And that to me,
And we've seen a whole boatload of injuries.
we have, yeah, we have. You know, like if Dane Evans is healthy or ready to go, which that might be tough. He'll have the extra week. I think Matthew Schultz
We're
will.
back to Mazzoli and Evans again. This
Yeah,
is 0.20,
I think.
except we have role reversal.
Yeah, exactly. Right, and so if this is going to be the biggest. I think this is going to be the biggest call of Orlando Steinhauer's
Oh,
career.
yes, it is.
And you know what? I know that Schultz told Dane Evans in that final drive, just go do what you got to do, right? Like they have faith that he can do it. My, it's just that's gonna be a lot to put on Matthew Schultz considering.
Even if he starts Evans, I'm referring to the head coach. The question is how quick does the Le Hook come out? That's in honor of it being in Montreal.
Yeah, no, I think it would mean a lot to him, definitely. I think like my question is, would it be better to say, let's start Evans, but tell Matthew Schultz be ready to go.
Absolutely.
That they might do
If they
that
go with
because they've
if
done
they go
that.
with Evans.
If they go with Evans, that's kind
But
of
if
what
Evans is hurting at all, David, this is my prediction. If he's hurting at all, they're not going to let him play with the injury.
no, because we have
He
seen
can't.
Dane Evans when
He
he is
needs it.
young. He needs to be
He
mentally.
needs to be 100%.
He needs to be well, even not even. He just can't have an injury lingering over him and changing his kind of how he approaches the game because that does happen when you're hurt. you tend to compensate, or you're thinking too much about the injury and not what's going on the field.
Absolutely. He's their guy until he's not their guy. The
Yeah.
Hamilton Tiger Cats organization is there to win a Grey Cup, and in this case, win this semifinal in the East, to get to the final in the East, to get to the Grey Cup. Disappointments in the past have put so much pressure on this organization. It's almost a relief. Think about this. It's almost a relief for the Hamilton Tiger Cats to have snuck into the playoffs the way they did, because they would have been trying to figure out how are we going to lose this time? How are we going to lose this time? Because the fans, I had to calm down a few Cat fans. I said, "No, there's no way we're going to get into playoffs." I said, "There's a chance." Well, you've been here with me. Um, it's they're really like this was the best way for Hamilton to be in the playoffs. Even better would have been if they didn't make it this week and did it next week.
Really, I think for Hamilton, the great thing about this is you go into this feeling confident.
And nada to lose, because you're not even supposed to be here.
Yeah, no, I think that's the best way to put it. They really didn't have much to lose, really, because I didn't see them getting into the playoffs just because I thought they didn't have the quarterback play.
Playing
Well,
on the house
apparently
money.
Saskatchewan didn't have it either. Neither team. It was one of those. No, you make the playoffs. No, no, you can make the playoffs. No, you make the playoffs. You're the one hosting the damn thing. No, no, no.
And then,
But
and
you
then
know
they
what?
both wanted to make the playoffs this
Yeah,
past weekend.
exactly. It was a very. You know what? I'll give the CFL this. This made for a very the way the schedule worked out, and we talked about this last week. It lived up to the billing of how the schedule was meant to provide some, you know, provide a nice little finish to the season there.
Due to our technical difficulties, Eduardo, if you're there, are we going to go to full 50? You can answer in text. Yeah, so Hamilton's in, Ottawa's out. Hamilton has an opportunity to salvage a season that was clearly lost, and good for them that they have the opportunity to do that. Then we have other issues, like for example, I I gotta tell you, I like BC, and they beat Edmonton. Not much of a thing. The news out of Edmonton is um, there's a problem with the coach's cap.
Chris Jones and I think very much alike, and I'm very happy about that because you know what, Chris Jones, you know who you can go and complain to about that? The people that are writing your paychecks, because they're the ones who voted this in. They're the ones who voted in because they wanted to protect, in a way, and I don't blame them in a business sense of protecting their bottom line, but you gotta talk to your owners about you know what this does. Funny enough that as Chris Jones mentions this, Farhan Lalji for TSN is reporting that the operations cap is going to increase to pre-pandemic levels in 2023
What?
because it went down. They
Yeah,
did
well, it
bring
was it was a series of a train of shrinkage, to use a
it's so to give you.
Seinfeld term.
So this is what Farhan had said. It is right now at 2.3. It is going to increase to 2.5 million.
It's a
So
little
they
less than half what the players get.
Yeah, so they're getting an extra $200,000. Spot now. Here's the other one that's an interesting one. Spots are still the same, up to 11 coaches and 25 total in football operations.
Whoa.
So that was the other issue that Chris Jones had. He just didn't. He said he didn't have the. He just did not have the room to do anything. But
Absolutely.
what this does is if Edmonton is thinking about potentially changing anything, uh, you may have to think twice about that.
You might. You might have to. Yeah. So Edmonton is looking for coaches that they can afford. Chris Jones wants to make some changes. Basically, that's what he's saying because he doesn't have the money to make changes because he's thought about making changes and he realized he doesn't have the money to do it. So we'll see what happens in the offseason there. We'll see what happens in the last. I don't know what's Chris Jones going to do for the last game of the season. I don't know. You know.
Well, they're done.
Oh, they're done. That's right. They got the bye week next week.
Yeah, it was funny because a friend of mine, when we were putting up articles on Sportsnet's website, my friend's like, "Why is there an Edmonton season wrap article?" I'm like, "It's because their season's done. They get like imagine it would have been funny because imagine if Edmonton somehow had won the West Division, they would have had instead of they would have had extra weeks off because they wouldn't have had that final regular season game, but." This is again where the 10th team would actually be a little beneficial
Always
because
said it.
you wouldn't
Always
have a team going, oh, I guess we're done here, guys. I mean,
by itself.
yeah,
By
like,
itself on its lonesome. Yeah,
yeah.
that's too much. The next game, Toronto and Montreal, we watched Toronto figure out a way to win again. It comes down to a point again against Montreal. This is a team, Montreal, that they the Argos defense did a marvelous job in the first half. They did it in the game, but in the first half, they really took the game to Montreal. I mean, the Argos scored what I forget how many points off turnovers.
Good question.
It was. It doesn't matter. They did. Their defense set their offense up, and their offense moved the ball. Boy, did they move the ball! They got the ball on the 2 yard line and went all the way into the. Oh boy, it was just. They look good. They look good.
Yeah, this is. I was concerned about the Argos defense going into this one because really, the game plan from Montreal should have been run the football, run the football, run the football, run the football. Especially without Win McManus there, like Henoch Mwamba was the only regular linebacker to start this game, and they ran the ball. I'm just looking here, if I'm not mistaken. Here I got the numbers right here. They rushed it 22 times for 106 yards, which is not bad. I expected more, and it's funny because Trevor Harris had a really good game, but he threw that one interception. Um, they just could not convert in the red zone. That was their undoing, and it's been their undoing a lot of the times. I give Jake Winicky a lot of credit. He played a really good game. He had he had the big touchdown, but I was talking with somebody during the game. They said during the time that they are honoring S.J. Green, the game that they're honoring S.J. Green, who had probably one of the nicer CFL catches I have seen, and Eugene Lewis is just like, oh, here, hold my beer. I'll go.
Superman.
Like that's what made this game. That's what made this a good game. It wasn't a high scoring game, but it was in the end great plays, and they both teams need to make great plays to win this game. Great decisions too to win this game. So I thought Montreal, they looked like they were in good shape to win this game in that second half. I thought momentum was going their way. I mean, they scored 17 points. They scored majority of their points in that fourth quarter. It's just what the Argos did well is there was a response. They didn't go allow Montreal to score 17 points and they put up a zero. They still put up points, and of course, the all crucial Rouge to win it. And I said, and with that Rouge, I was just like, when I saw they were going for the field goal, I said he doesn't even need to make it. He just needs to make sure it doesn't get taken out of the end zone, and they win this game. And he knew that. Boris, he might not have been. It wasn't accurate because it went wide, but it was long enough that it took them out of the end zone. That's the,
Absolutely.
that's the sign of a team that knew in those moments what they need to do to get the job done, and they got it done.
Yeah, they did a great job. Both teams. I mean, we've got the three Eastern teams, and in fact, I think you could say the same thing for the Western teams. All 6 teams are on a good roll. The teams that are in the playoffs are going in playing well. Even though Montreal didn't win that the last game, and I wouldn't, because everything's now set, I wouldn't really count anything that goes on next week. Next week's going to be maintenance days for some players. They're going to protect some players. Um, Number 2 quarterbacks are going to get a look to see if they're as good as the team hopes they are. You know, Kelly, for example, with Toronto, he's probably going to get at least a half. They might start with, McLeod, but they'll definitely by halftime they'll go to Kelly. But we'll see the kind of physical nature of the game. If it's an excessively physical game, if I was Dinwiddie, Thompson wouldn't be out there.
I would say if he's irking to go for a game, give him a quarter, give him something. I think the last year they pretty much didn't play anybody that was supposed to be a big name player. It was the right decision because injuries can happen, but they were rusty in that East final. And I'm wondering if some players are going to be like, you know what, it didn't work for us last year. Let's at least, because they have that bye, let's at least keep ourselves somewhat fresh. They could do that, or they learned from what happened last year, and they can still make sure that nobody gets hurt. They just have to make sure that they are, doing this in the right way.
Injuries happen when you're coasting. That's when you get injured, when you're not playing at normal speed, normal intensity. Everyone can pick their own level, whatever that is. But you change the way you do things. We talked about repetition earlier. Same thing. Your body, muscle memory is really important, and you've got to behave in a way that your body expects you to. Your mind talking to your body and sending the message, the impulses, and all that stuff. So yeah, so the Argos look good. Montreal look good. They both look good. Hamilton look good. So the Eastern Conference, they're in good shape. The teams that are in there, the players that are going to play, not as much because, quite frankly, Evans, Hamilton has a real quandary. You know, do they start Evans or not?
If he's not 100%, don't even. I think you be you just don't want to tempt fate. This is a game that really doesn't mean much. It means more to the Ottawa Redblacks than it does to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. You got to be
Yeah,
very careful.
yeah. No, hey, there's no doubt about it. You know, if there's a Hamilton Tiger Cat that needs that game, it's Dane Evans.
He might ask for it.
He might want it because A, he wants to show that he's healthy. B, you know, once again, he has to do something positive because in his mind, there's some negative stuff going on.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the coach might also say you've
Not
had
your
some.
decision.
Yeah, you've had some tough injuries this season. Maybe we're gonna make it relax a little bit here. Take it easy. Don't put yourself in a position you don't want to be in.
Yeah, well, Evans, you know, came to this league, played for Hamilton, had some games that were phenomenal to the point where the Hamilton management group decided to keep Evans and let Mazzoli go. They had a choice about the two. They knew they weren't going to keep both, and they made the decision about Evans. Ironically, Mazzoli went on to Ottawa and gets hurt early in the season. So, the more things change, the more they remain the same, I guess. Um, so Dane Evans, he'll need that game to prove that his thumb's okay, to prove to himself that he's okay, and more importantly, prove to the coaching staff and management at the Hamilton Tiger Cats that, yeah, we like what Schultz did. We're tempted to put him in because of the success that he's had for us. He's been a key component in winning games for the Hamilton Tiger Cats at a time when they needed victories.
Mhm.
desperately, including the last game. So, that's going to be a tough situation. And, Hamilton has not had a quarterback they can give the ball to automatically for a very long time. And I think it's going to continue. There's going to be a debate.
Oh, for sure. And there, I like. I don't mind it because, again, I was not sold. I hadn't been sold on Dane Evans this season, and really, Dane Evans should kind of feel like he has something to prove. And Hamilton's not. Look, Hamilton's been doing a lot of things right, but they also need to remember that they were almost out of the playoffs because their quarterback play just wasn't good enough. So I think that realization still needs to be there. You can't be you can feel good about being in the playoffs, but also remember you're third. You got to win 2 road games. Hamilton had the benefit of having the home game last year. This is a totally different animal for them this year.
Absolutely. So, Hamilton, congratulations. You win. And that's a good thing because 3 Eastern teams are in the Eastern playoffs. I really didn't like the idea of a Western team coming in there. No offense to the Saskatchewan Roughrider fans.
It was, like for Saskatchewan. First off, they this was the season that they were supposed to bounce back after everything that happened. You know, they had the Grey Cup in their house. This is a lot of expectations to be the one to have to go through the West and then get there. I didn't like that. I just didn't. I personally just never saw Saskatchewan being that team that would do it, that could do it. Um, but yeah, that was a team. And look, the West crossover. If people keep saying, maybe this year we'll see a West crossover. This year we'll finally see a team from the West all the way to the Grey Cup through the crossover. Until I see it, I ain't gonna believe it personally. And so like, it just hasn't been a recipe for success. I know why the CFL does it. I understand why it's needed, but it hasn't resulted in what I think the CFL was kind of hoping for when they implemented it. Or maybe it is. Maybe it's doing exactly what the CFL wants to do without actually telling people that this is what they want out of it.
Let's move on to the next game, BC and Edmonton. My goodness, what do you think of James Butler and what he's serving up as running?
This is a crucial thing, I think, for BC. If your quarterback
Wow.
play isn't, let's say, Nathan Rourke isn't coming in, or he's not even at his best, I think they got a pretty good insurance policy in James Butler there.
They surely do.
And playoffs, we have seen how important it is for a team to have a good running game in the playoffs. And I think that's consistent with every team that's made the playoffs. They all have a good running game. They all have maybe not even a good running game, but an established running game.
That carries its own weight.
Yeah, exactly. Some teams have a featured back. Some teams do it as kind of a tandem, but they all have made sure that the running game is not a forgotten part of their game plan.
Antonio Pipkin runs in for another touchdown.
He continues. I mean, I'll give him credit. That's a tough situation for him because he thought he was going to be the guy to take over when Rourke went down. It didn't happen, and I'm glad he didn't let he's still giving them that because he's got. I talk down sometimes about the QB sneak role, but it's crucial because teams need it big time. So I give him a lot of credit.
In this game, the 2 quarterbacks threw more interceptions than touchdowns. I
Like,
hate to sound like a broken record, but
there's not much, unfortunately.
I'm just saying. At some point, I don't know what it is. Is it the protection that's lacking? Um, I don't know. quality statistics from quarterbacks in the Canadian Football League are few and far between. And sometimes when the stats scream "yay, great," the actual scoring doesn't. So I'm waiting to see if I don't know how to help these quarterbacks be more. I mean, if we're going to sell the game, the quarterbacks have to be effective.
Yeah,
That's what sells the game. It doesn't win championships. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you got to bring people to the stadium so that when it isn't playoff time, there's something to bring them in. In the playoffs, the defenses play really well. There's a couple of games they got to win, but winning isn't everything. Entertainment matters, and
I
interceptions aren't entertaining.
no, and look, like Trey Ford was put in a tough position because he's only playing this game because the other quarterback got hurt on a hit because he decided, well, I'm not getting the protection to throw the ball, so I'm just going to run it. Oh, I mean Taylor Cornelius likes to run it too, and he gets hurt because as soon as a quarterback goes out of the pocket, a defensive player's eyes go, "Oh, here he comes," and he knocked one
Dinner
by
time.
his head. When he saw the quarterback, it was like a shark in the water smelling blood. They go for it. You don't get free shots on the quarterback. I mean, we're talking about quarterbacks and trying to protect them behind the line of scrimmage. But once they get past, it's like you're open game. And you know what? I thought Trey Ford was going to be in for a decent game. When you saw that first touchdown pass, it was a thing of beauty to Dylan Mitchell. Great throw in the end zone, great catch, and then they couldn't build off of it, and that's frustrating. It would be but you know what? This is also how many times, Frank, do you see a rookie quarterback play meaningful snaps in the CFL right after being drafted? And how often do you see a rookie Canadian quarterback
No,
do it? Other than Nathan Rourke last year was doing it.
let's call it the Nathan Rourke effect.
Yeah, Nathan
That's what
Rourke
it
started
is.
a trend. And I know some people who know Trey Ford who grew up around him or grew up knowing him and know the family. There's a lot of pride there in knowing that he's getting that opportunity. But now this is a critical offseason. If I'm Trey Ford, I'm dialing Nathan Rourke's number and saying, "What are you doing this summer? Where are we getting together to do our work?" Because that's how you get better. Is you learn from those who you want to emulate, and I think Trey Ford definitely wants to do that for. He definitely wants to do that in Edmonton, and he's got a great opportunity. Also, Edmonton signed Taylor Cornelius to that 2-year deal, but I think they're going to start using a two quarterback system there. I think they do want to try that, and they want to use two guys. And so if I'm Trey Ford, I want to make Edmonton rethink whether they should have given Taylor Cornelius that 2-year deal.
I guess okay. I'll buy in. Um, what I hope happens is that Nathan Rourke's healthy, and we get to see what he can do in the playoffs. So my hope is that he's able to play, um, and then we'll go from there. No offense to any other quarterback, but I'm telling you, Nathan Rourke was he was amazing, and I'd like to see him. Hopefully, he's really healthy. I hope they don't just put him out there because it's convenient to have him out there. That's something I'm not looking forward to. So the BC Lions win 31-14 to the Edmonton Elks, who played their last game of the season and went through their lockers after the game and took what they needed to go home. And now Chris Jones is looking for coaches, and he's on a budget.
Yeah, it's that 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 West Division is going to be. If you're a team and you're trying to figure out how do we get better than BC, Calgary, and Winnipeg, that's that's what makes that West Division so tough. Is because the top teams are just so good, I'm wondering if someone's just like, can we just for 1 year relocate out east and see how we do out there? Talking about the
No
crossover, but
kidding.
it's going to be
No kidding.
such an interesting off season there.
Calgary and Saskatchewan. We'll talk about the game very quickly and then talk about Saskatchewan. Calgary 32, Saskatchewan 21. Sis, I'll go with Calgary. They're consummate professionals. Right from the very top to the very bottom. That is an organization that if you sleep on them, they will eat you alive. So if you're any team that they're playing, you better be ready to play some football, as this is a team that is in it to win it. And I don't like the idea of being any team that plays them.
No, I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster if they expose teams that don't that kind of underestimate or just are making mistakes. That's a dangerous team. Always is and always will be a dangerous team. And that's going to make for some entertaining I like when teams capitalize on mistakes. I don't like when teams let teams off the hook. That's always like a even if it's a team that I kind of am rooting for, which I don't really root for a team that much, but I kind of don't want to see a team let another team off the hook. I'm glad that they don't.
Yeah, I can hear what you're saying. When we talk about Calgary, we're talking about a team that makes tough decisions without blinking an eye. You
And
know
not making controversy out of it.
how many teams pull an MOP to the sideline? Grey Cup winner, MOP, for a time the best quarterback in the Canadian Football League, and say, you know what, we're going with the other guy. How many teams can actually do that and not suffer any kind of blowback? You
It's
know,
funny. It's funny because we saw this a lot in Toronto where Ricky Ray, it was never performance, it was always injuries. When are they going to let another quarterback kind of take over there? No, we can't do that to Ricky Ray. As long as we have Ricky Ray, you can't do that to him. Calgary's just like, we want to win. We have a better guy. Sorry, Bo. We're doing a disservice to the players on the field by not going with. Now, this is a different situation. I can't really compare them too much, but Calgary's just like, we got the better player right now as that's playing behind you. He can't. We have to do what's best for the team. We can't. Unfortunately, and look, Bo Levi Mitchell might go down as one of the as a franchise great because of everything he did for that city. But there comes a time where reality has to kick in. You can't fan the decision. And I credit, I credit Dave Dickinson, John Hofnagel. Not only did they take Bo Levi Mitchell and sit him, but they gave Jake Mayer that contract extension to really make it home go like really tell the fan base this is the guy. This is who we are going with. I'm hoping Bo Levi Mitchell gets his chance to have a nice ending in Calgary, which is play that final game, give him the chance to really have a good send off, and then watch him go to Saskatchewan at the end of the season.
that's where you think he's going. I don't know if
The
he'd go
rumor
there.
mill is
There have been some personal experiences that he's had with Saskatchewan fans. I'm not sure he'd want to go there, but you never know. Here's what I'm going to say about Bo Levi Mitchell. In that last game, he's going to get in there. He's going to get a chance. I think that they'll give him some time. The thing about my Mayor is that what he's done it in the shadow of greatness, or in the shadow of in the shadow of greatness. Bo Levi Mitchell is the definition of greatness in the Canadian Football League. You know, his big days are past. That's what Calgary said. That's what Calgary was betting on. Calgary was betting, as easy as it isn't even easy, but as much as it is to sit an MOP, to know you have the guy that can go in there and handle. Remember, folks, he's replacing literally, figuratively, a Calgary legend. You know, that's that's a pretty amazing set of shoes to step into and have him standing on the sidelines while you're doing it. This Meyer, he's got ice in his veins.
He does. That's not an easy situation to go into because in a lot of ways somebody could say, first mistake, they got to pull him. You can't leave Bo Levi Mitchell back there if he's healthy and ready to go. And if this guy's making a mistake, how much of a we can't give him a big leash. And he's just like, once I got the job, I'm not giving it back. I credit Jake Mayer for that because that's not an easy position to put into. We saw firsthand that change of the guard happen, and we're just like, is this the end? And we didn't think it was going to be the end just because we thought, you know what, they're just going to let Bo have this game and say, you know what, we'll get you back, we'll get you back in there. Nope. Nope. Jake Mayer did exactly what any good inspiring backup who wants to be a starter can do. Bid your
Has to do.
time, don't complain, learn from the guy that's you're behind, and then when your time is up, when they call your name, you be ready. Because I keep asking, I've asked Chad Kelly, I've asked many quarterbacks who have come through the Argos, you know, you ready? Like, what, how do you get yourself ready if called upon, or how do you prepare? He's like, I'm always preparing as if I'm the starter. I keep hearing that. I keep hearing that. But to see Jake Mayer actually put those words into action means a whole lot more because essentially you don't get that many opportunities to try to take the job of as you said, as of a Calgary legend.
And to have the faith of your coach and your general manager, because they both had to have faith in them. That in that organization, everybody knows what the decision is, and they're all going to make it together. There is no single input in Calgary. I am convinced more than on any team, there is a symbiotic relationship between the general manager and the head coach. They are a two-headed monster, and it's a two-headed monster that every year loses key players. Maybe not as important as Bo Levi Mitchell at his prime,
Yep.
but they've lost many a key player, and they've moved on. It's amazing, but they've moved on, and they
That's that
continue to.
that's why a lot of teams that's why the Argos honestly, that's why the Argos plucked a lot of what Calgary's doing because a lot of teams want to do what Calgary's doing. There's an admirers there's they really admire like Bill Manning, and Argos fans may have kind of downplayed this when they heard it, but I heard him loud and clear. He went to John Huffnagel and he picked his brain as much as he could to find out how exactly has Calgary done what they have done. There's a reason why they go to John Huffnagel because out of all the other teams in the CFL, who are you going to get advice on how to run a team? Not only run a team, but run it consistently as successful as Calgary has been.
Because what you're talking about is, I'll pick up from here for a little bit. What you're talking about is continuity, consistency, a plan. Now, the plan only deviates when something in the plan isn't working the way the plan wants it to work. The plan is to have a quarterback that can move your football team, that's an offensive addition, the quarterback's the guy that makes the offense work. If the guy isn't making the offense work, it's not a change of plan. It's still the same plan. They know every player in Calgary has a role. Perform the role, you're on the team. Don't perform the role, you're not on the team. That's next man up, they maybe haven't they weren't the ones to invent next man up, but man, over the past 10, 12 years, David, they have made it work. And it's because of Huffnagel and Dickinson together. They have been together longer than any other tandem in the Canadian Football League. In fact, there aren't enough coaches that have been in the league as long as Dickinson's been in, or general managers that have. So they've done it together and longer than anybody. And the reason they've been doing it for as long as they have is because they've always been successful. And you talked about Bill Manning. You have to also talk about Pinball Clemens. What does Pinball Clemens want? What did he want? He wanted a team like Calgary that every year could win the Grey Cup.
Or
And
was going to be a playoff team every year.
well, and no, and be a leader of the pack, right? Be an odds-on favorite to win the Grey Cup each and every year. And last year they were an odds-on favorite. They just stumbled in the Eastern Final. They should have been at the Grey Cup, the kind of team and season they had. This year, same thing. They got a team that wins games. They're in first place. It's what Pinball said. So, this isn't a question of an Argo team that's 8-8 and we're going, okay, well, they could win the Grey Cup. They could win this playoff game. No, this is a team that's supposed to win. Sounds a lot like the Maple Leafs when I think about it.
I think the best part about it too is how many assistants have been taken away from Calgary. How many coordinators have been taken away from Calgary? So
Next
you
coach
mentioned
up.
coaches. So you
Next
mentioned
coach up.
players, but coaches are play a big part of that too. But they have such a they have bred so many coaches and coordinators in that CFL. It's because they've mastered the systems, they've mastered the consistency, the message, and the willingness to adapt. This isn't the same Calgary that went to the Grey Cup in 2017 and 18, throwing the ball, having Bo Levi Mitchell get close to 5,000 yards passing, look unbeatable. They're running the football. They're playing great defense. They're making smart plays. I mean, they always made smart plays, but this is not the same Calgary type of team that they've adapted. Adapt and survive.
And
Right.
improve.
And yeah, exactly. They they
And
they
improve.
do it to they do it to a T. They do it in a way that I think, as we found out, most teams could only dream of doing.
But you know what? There are teams that have proven that continuity is important. We've seen it learned in BC. We've seen it learned in Toronto. We've seen it not learned in Montreal. But in Montreal, we saw the other thing where change for the better. There were a lot of people that were, I don't want to say accusing the new head coach, the GM in Montreal, of usurping the position. He said only for this year, and it turns out he was right. The team's better now than it was under the previous coach.
Yeah, no, you're seeing it. You're definitely seeing it. You just have to be patient with it. You can't rush anything. You gotta be smart, right? And smart doesn't always mean taking the unnecessary chances either.
Absolutely.
Knowing what your players can and can't do. That's what makes a great team.
100%. You're totally right. And if there's nothing else that the season's going to show us, this is probably one of the most interesting seasons we've seen in a long time, David. It is one of my favorite seasons over the past. I'm going to go as far as at least a decade. I don't think we've seen a season where six teams all in could win the Grey Cup.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I mean, in my time, yeah, I would say like every team kind of having closer to a level playing field. I think you're right on that.
Well, especially because in the East we have three teams that are playing really well going in, and they have a history of being good. Hamilton has a history of being good. Montreal has a history this year of being good. Toronto has 2 years of being good. We don't have any excuse me teams in the Eastern playoff this year,
Right.
and that's awesome. David, this was fun, man.
Thank you, Frank.
Take two worked out pretty good.
I think so.
I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. He's David Morassutti. Thank you for watching CFL Talk Air and Live Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network for CFL Talk news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer. Please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Candid Frank.